Chapter 12. Original Sin. 8:30 a.m. I woke up. For the first time in years, it seemed, I didn't wake up feeling weighed down, and I felt more rested, freer, despite the complaints of my bones and back muscles. I admit I felt good. I got up to go to the bathroom, and on the way, I peeked into the bedroom. She was still asleep. Then I made my breakfast, ate, turned on the laptop, and started writing. It had been years since I felt such a great need to write, to say things. And this sensation seemed to have returned, the reason why I write. At this moment, deadlines no longer distressed me. I didn't worry about what I wrote. I simply poured out my opinions, my points of view, my soul into a file. I wrote with pleasure, purpose, and reason, as opposed to writing to pay the bills. She woke up around 11. She came to the bedroom door and saw me writing. She smiled. "Good morning," I said to her.
"Good morning. It seems there's something different."
"Yeah, I think I managed to get organized and I'm working."
"Well, that's very good. Carry on. I'll make lunch. But hey, what do you say we go to Lisbon later?"
"Why?"
"Because I feel like getting out of here for a bit. Because I like isolation, but not too much. I'd like to go out for a little while and take a walk. We could go. What do you say?"
"Well, right now I'm a bit into this."
"Yes, but you know, living a little is also good."
I fell silent. The last time she said something similar, I didn't expect at all what happened next. "Are you sure you want to go?"
"I am. But don't think about it now. Keep going. Let's leave at mid-afternoon."
I continued writing, but I didn't see her again until she called me for lunch. We had lunch, always chatting lightly, like good friends. And I confess, I felt that more and more about her. Maybe also because of everything that had happened yesterday. After lunch, I returned to writing, and it was around 4 in the afternoon when she came up to me, already dressed to go out.
"Ready?"
"Are you really sure you want to go?"
"I am,"
she said with a smile. "Then let me go change."
"There's no need. You can change at your place in Lisbon. We'll stop there before we figure out where we're going."
If yesterday, the prospect of going to my house seemed odious to me, today it seemed only a detail of little significance. I rarely went there, and when I did, I never stayed long. Most of the time the house was closed. There were still clothes of Diana's there, things she hadn't even had the courage to reclaim and of which I couldn't get rid. The house was laden with her, and that always made me uncomfortable, but not today. The discomfort had gone with the guilt, especially because I finally realized that I couldn't consider myself guilty of someone else's mistake. I felt like I was finally at peace with myself. "Yes, we can stop by. Let's go then." We hit the road in the first few kilometers. Despite her jovial and cheerful demeanor, she remained silent. It wasn't until some time later that she spoke.
"What I'm about to tell you now didn't happen to me. But it's necessary for you to know so you can understand everything else."
I realized she was going back to her past right there. She continued.
"After I left Eden, Adam was left alone, without a companion. Loneliness began to gnaw at him, to sadden him, to kill his spirit. Yahweh called for me several times, but I knew that if I returned the problems would come back in the same way, and I refused. I still didn't feel it was the right time. If you know what 10 years of solitude can do to a man, imagine 100.
It was hard for me to imagine, really.
In the meantime, Yahweh eventually felt sorry for him, for the loneliness and the state of mind. And that's how Eve appeared, made for Adam, more docile and subservient. Her appearance gave Adam new life. What Yahweh didn't expect was what happened next.
So?
The loneliness changed Adam. It changed him a lot, just as I knew it would. And the irony is that he didn't want to treat me as an equal but ended up submitting to Eve, not because he saw the world differently, but because he was afraid of being alone again. I was right when I thought he hadn't changed yet, but he ended up submitting out of fear. Yahweh was furious. Not only because of the attitude, but also because of his reasons. He realized that what he had in mind from the beginning was falling apart, that his plans were failing. There was no longer a chance to start what he wanted and, as such, he expelled Adam and Eve from Eden. Since Eve hadn't been conceived like us, Yahweh took away from Adam the longevity so that the two could go through life together.
But then what about the story of the apple? I asked, trying to add a touch of humor to the question. She understood and laughed.
Do you know where the story of the apple comes from?
Frankly, no.
Genesis speaks of fruit, not apple. And it could never speak of an apple, because it wasn't something known in those parts.
So where does it come from then?
From the fact that when Genesis is translated into Latin, the word fruit appears and the translators, as an allegory, introduce the apple into the story because the word for apple is the same as for evil, malus. The poor apple took the blame without any fault.
So, in that case, what is the original sin?
My dear, the original sin is pride.
But then how do you become the queen of the night? The one who comes to harvest the lives of Eve's children, the ally of demons.
Through that same pride, my dear. Can you imagine Adam's resentment? And the resentment he passed on to his offspring. He spent the rest of his life blaming me for everything. As for me, I don't consider myself guilty of anything, except for doing what I thought was right, without demanding more than I was due. And you know what? In a way, I feel exempt from the original sin.
Why?
Because I don't think I have any responsibility for what happened, so I'm the only person in the world whose actions are not sin.
You don't feel guilt?
Exactly. I'm free.